I love fine version scroll as much as the next man, but when you see a game scene gun from 120 years ago, it's yummy. This is the Lang and Hussey Sidelock. Before we get started on this beautiful gun, let's talk a little bit about the history behind Lang and Hussey. Lang and Hussey is the amalgamation of Joseph Lang and H.J. Hussey. Hussey himself actually apprenticed or trained at Holland & Holland and worked his way up through the ranks until he was general manager, and at that point he moved over to work for Joseph Lang & Co. This move to Lang's was in 1895, and with the clout that he brought with him and all of the client base, actually he moved his way from general manager to partner, and the name was subsequently changed to Lang and Hussey. Lang and Hussey was actually owned by Webleys at the time, and they were sort of a silent partner, a silent investor in this company. Unfortunately, history is always told from one side, right? And that one side is Webley's side, is that Hussey was accused of stealing, essentially embezzling, nicking money, auctioning off clients' guns and certain guns, and pocketing a certain chunk of the profits. This obviously didn't go down particularly well with the investor, or Lang's, and subsequently he was kicked out fairly shortly after it became Lang and Hussey. He did promise to the world never to go out into gun trade again without sort of doing this without changing his ways. However, that didn't quite come off, so he went out and started Hussey and Hussey with his son, which later, in about 1918, became Harrison and Hussey, because it was bought into by Harrison. Anyway, for a short period of time before Lang and Hussey went back to being called just Lang, they made guns, and they are very, very pretty. So, let's look at this one. So the stock on this is beautifully figured walnut. And because a lot of stocks back then were made quite short, somebody has put this rather large extension on there. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it serves a purpose. I expect the new owner will have that taken off fairly shortly, and put something a little bit more period correct, or at least less uncouth on there. Straight hand stock runs through to the beautiful, subtle safety and retention of some original colour on there, and that is absolutely beautiful. You have beading around the fences, but this gun really stands on its own, purely based on the engraving. You can't not fall in love with it. You have two partridges and a pointing dog behind them. On the bottom, you have a pair of ducks, a pintail. A hair on the trigger guard is possibly my favourite bit, although I do love the ducks. That hair is just stunning. It's serial number 13049. Serial number 13049, although everything to do with Hussey's, whether that be the father or the son, is actually really quite complicated. There's not great records out there, and the history, as much as research you can do on it, you'll find various versions of the truth or various versions of stories, or, well, it's just difficult, isn't it? Because it was a long time ago when there was a lot more gun makers. Nowadays, where there's only a dozen or so gun makers left in the UK, it's quite easy to keep track of them. Interestingly enough, actually, although it was Hussey Sr. who was kicked out of Lang and Hussey, his son was left fairly shortly after as well, and there was no Hussey left in there. Just interesting. And on the off side, you have an absolutely beautiful pheasant with what looks like a rather insane spaniel leaping up behind it. I think I've seen that image quite a few times in real life as well. 13049, actually puts this gun somewhere in the region of 1900 to 1910, probably towards the earlier part of that, about 1903. However, there's a whole set of dates and serial numbers that actually is misplaced, so they're not all sequential, which makes this even harder. The proof marks tell an interesting story, and it looks like the originals were struck off. As you can see, these are sleeved. It's got 729 and 18.4, two different proof marks there, and two different sets of dates. So it was changed from a 2.5 inch gun into a 70mm gun, a 2 3/4 inch gun, whilst it was sleeved. Actually, the sleeving job was a really best quality because these barrels don't weigh 7 tons like a lot of sleeving jobs tend to do. You have WR stamped on there. I presume that was whoever did the barrels back then. The original top rib has the third bolt on the back and is stamped Lang and Hussey, 102 New Bond Street, London, which is the original Lang address. All in all, a really nice gun. Apart from the fact it's sleeved, and that makes guns like this really dip in value because who wants a sleeved gun? However, when a gun is sleeved to this sort of level, where actually it's not horrifically front heavy and actually makes it a much more usable gun, and more importantly, a sleeving essentially just turns it into a modern gun, if you like, actually, because most of the guns we buy now, being monoblocked, are kind of sleeved, if you like. It balances actually rearward of the hinge, although it's a very long action, and has that horrific bit on the back. You don't find guns like this new that the average person could afford. And that is the beauty of taking the hit and buying something that is potentially sleeved, because you get something that has outlived every human on Earth, that is absolutely stunning, that is obviously full of machining, but a huge amount of hand finishing as well at this period in time, and with hand cut game scene engraving. I absolutely adore this gun. I absolutely adore this gun. Wow. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Take care, goodbye. Thank you for letting me wax lyrical about something beautiful. I hope you agree, because you just don't find them like that every day. Take care. It's been brilliant. We'll see you next time.